Welcome. So we want to do just a number of examples that we want to work with to show you how our databases work. And with our databases, we'll be able to see and um, take note of how we can create our database. So we come to localhost for our MySQL. You can actually have this done by actually installing this application here. I'm just gonna show you the running database server that we've got. And for those who are new to this platform, we work with a platform called XAMPP, and this is the interface that we've got for our XAMPP. So simply put, we want to be able to create a database and work with a couple of elements that we can put or use for our learning. So, for example, we can go to SQL, and with our SQL, we want to create certain privileges that we want to be able to work with and use for our database. We can put create, and then we put a database, and then the database name we want to have is video DB. That's the database we want to create. And since this is a query, we call this a query. So our query works in this manner: create database, and database becomes the database name. So we click on go, and then we execute the query. So since it did not have anything in it, we then need to take note that the moment it has done this, it has created our database. And as you can see, video DB, if we look on the left hand side, we can actually select our video DB, and we now have a blank database. So now we want to create a few elements into our database or for our database. So we go to SQL again. This time, instead of saying create database, we say create, and then we want to create a table, and then the name of the table is customer. And then for our database, we then want to put the content we want to have within our database. So if you remember, we said after normalization, we now have a primary key. So let's assume that we have normalized our table, and the table that we're working with yesterday was looking at creating a video rental system, basically. So we can then say customer ID comes our primary key, and this is an int, and then after this we want to say this is not now. We also want to say auto increment. So put a comma to finish off the line. We then put the next value, which we want to be the first name, and this is a var char. We open and we close brackets. We want this to be 100. We also want this to be not now. And then the next element is the last name. We also make this a var char. We want this to be 100 as well, and we want this to be not now, like that. So we put a comma. The next element is an address, and we want this to be a var char. We open and close brackets, or rather before we close brackets, we put a value or a size, and this can be null as well because we don't know people's addresses. We also want a movie title. Like that. So this is also a var char. So please make sure you've got your settings right, because if you've got a missing element, your database will have problems. So for example, information we've got there, we still need it. So that's your customer ID, your first name, your last name, your address, your movie title. So you need to also make a copy of this. So we then put a primary key, and our primary key is our customer ID, and we put, okay, it seems to be giving me problems. What could be the case? Oh, I've put the wrong uh, set of brackets. Okay, let's also change that. Perfect. So you make sure you've got these smooth brackets. I need to just make a copy of that and paste it on the side so that I at least remember some of the content that I've put. And then if I click on go, we should be able to create our query. So by doing this, we've actually created a query and we've actually run it. So it tells you MySQL returned an empty result, and there's 0 values that have been entered. But you then actually get to notice that after doing that, we've got a table with customer ID, first name, last name, address, and movie title. So the next element we want to do now is our insert into. So if we go to our SQL, we can then go to insert, and then it tells us insert into customer, where customer ID, first name, last name, address, and movie title, and then the values we want to add. So this makes life a little bit easy because we can then pick the values we want to add. So for example, I can come there, I remove the first value, and the first value is supposed to be a number, so we put it at 1. The next value is supposed to be a name. We can then put it at Greg. The next value is a surname. We can put that as well as a name, which can be the next value we want is an address, and this can be anything. You can put University of Zimbabwe. We then want a movie title. We can then put our movie as anything we want as well. We can call it Cops and Robbers. Okay, we click on go and then we enter our values. So what this then means, the moment we've used insert, insert then looks at insert into customer, customer ID, first name, last name, address, and movie type. We select our customer again, or if I click on my customer again, we then get to see the element that I've actually added to my database. We can do the same and do another insert where we get insert, and we then put our values, which can be 2. We then need a name, Samantha, and surname Kumtani, address University of Gweru. We then put a movie title, and then we put our movie title in yellow heart. Okay, we click on go, and then we've actually added a new value. So the moment we're using an insert statement, it will not follow the auto increment aspect of it because we are forcing our elements into our database. So for example, if I go back to my list, I've got 1 and 2 because we've been putting them in the specific order as I've been typing them. But I can then force a specific number. So let's say I go to insert. I want to put my movie title as area. I want to put my address as Harare Garden. I also want to put my, I think the next value is the surname. I can put the surname as Zuse. I can also put the first name as Gringo. And I can put my value as whatever it is that I want it to be. So my value, I can put it as 6. So the moment I click on go, it will put my value at position number 6. Although I've actually skipped numbers from 1, 2, and then there's 3, 4, 5. So I've actually skipped 3 sets of numbers, but I have managed to put the information there, which is okay, but we then needed to auto increment. So it depends on how you then structure your database and how you put your information within your database so that you can be able to get certain things within your database or to your database. So let's say we then want to change something within our entries. We go to our SQL, we then go to update, right? So we want to update our value. So we need to at least change something. So we want to update customer, and where do we want to update? We need to then at least know where we want to update. So let's say I just cancel that for now. I write down what we've got there so that at least I can follow. Because when you don't have it, you can't tell what you want to do. Or maybe let me work with a query that I've got. Okay. We want Gringo. This is the customer ID. We want to be able to change the customer ID. We also want to be able to change the address. So we come to our SQL, right? We then say we want to update customer, right? And we want to set our first, and we want to set our customer ID to we want to set our customer ID to 3, and we also want to set our address to a specific address. So we then want this to be 10 Zimba Close, Harare. So we want to actually change the contents of our value, right? Where do we want to do this? We want a specific value where our customer ID is equal to 6, like that. So in other words, we've done a query. So we actually would call this a query. We want to update our customer ID. Sorry, we want to update our customer. We want to update our customer, which is this table. So we want to update our customer and set the customer ID to 3 and the address to 10 Muzinda Close Harare. where our customer ID is equal to 6. So you can only run this once. So you need to actually make sure that this is in order. So let me just copy this and save it on the side as well, so that I have a copy of what I would have done. So if I click on go, I then execute my query. After executing my query, if it's successful, it tells me update customer, set customer ID to 3, address to 10 was in the close, where customer ID is equal to 6. So already what this then means, we've changed the customer ID. After changing the customer ID, we've also changed the value of the address. So if I come to my table, I'll be able to see that my table now has a change. Instead of having 6 as my customer ID, I've changed that to 3. I've also changed the address to that address. So in other words, that's then how we can update our table. At the same time, we can also remove a specific element. So for example, we can say delete. Delete from customer where customer ID equals, we then put a value that we want, uh, where customer ID equals to 2. So that is the SQL that we need, where we say delete from customer where customer ID equals to 2. This is what we want to use. If my syntax is in order, we should be able to proceed. And it also then asks you, do you really want to delete from customer where customer ID equals to 2? I click on OK. If the query has been executed properly, we then delete from our customer where customer ID is equal to 2. If we go to my table, I then don't have the record for my customer number 2, ID number 2. I now have 1 and 3. So that's how we can play around with our values within our database and do simple queries within the database that we'll be working with.